The ballroom at the Grandview Hotel sparkled with crystal chandeliers and gold decorations. 200 guests filled the space. Relatives I hadn't seen in years, Dad's business associates, Mom's book club friends, and my brother's entire social circle. Everyone except the people I actually cared about. I stood in the corner near the dessert table, wearing a simple black dress while everyone else looked like they were attending a royal wedding. My sister-in-law Victoria had chosen her outfit to match the gold theme. My brother, Marcus, wore a custom suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Can you believe she actually showed up? I heard my aunt whisper to my cousin. I know. After everything, she still has the nerve. I grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and took a small sip. The truth was, I almost didn't come. The invitation had arrived 3 weeks late, stuffed in my mailbox between junk mail and bills. No phone call. No text message. Just a formal card that said, "You're invited," in elegant script. But I came anyway. Because despite everything, he was still my father. The band finished their song, and Marcus stepped up to the microphone on the small stage. He looked confident, commanding, everything my parents had always wanted in a son. At 35, he ran a successful investment firm downtown. At least that's what he told everyone. "Good evening, everyone." Marcus's voice boomed through the speakers. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate our father's 60th birthday." Applause filled the room. I clapped politely, staying in my corner. "Dad, you've been an inspiration to all of us," Marcus continued. "You built a business from nothing, raised a family, and taught us the meaning of hard work and integrity." I almost laughed at that last part. Integrity. That was rich coming from Marcus. "Tonight we're surrounded by family," Marcus said, his eyes scanning the crowd. Then they landed on me. His smile faltered for just a second before returning. "Well, mostly family." A few people turned to look at me. I kept my expression neutral, taking another sip of champagne. "You see, family isn't just about blood," Marcus said, his voice taking on a serious tone. "It's about showing up. It's about being there when it matters. It's about contributing to something bigger than yourself." My mother, sitting at the head table next to Dad, nodded along with every word. Dad's face was harder to read. He looked tired, older than 60. "And unfortunately," Marcus continued, "not everyone understands that. Some people think family is just a safety net. Something to fall back on when their own lives don't work out." My cousin Sarah, standing near the bar, glanced at me with what might have been sympathy. Or pity. I couldn't tell anymore. "So tonight I want to make something clear," Marcus said. "This celebration is for people who actually care about this family. People who contribute. People who show up." He paused for dramatic effect. The room had gone completely silent. "Isabella," he said, looking directly at me, "you're not part of this family anymore." The silence stretched for 3 long seconds. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Then the whole room erupted in applause. I stood there, glass in hand, and smiled. Just smiled. Marcus looked pleased with himself. Victoria was beaming. My mother looked relieved, like a problem had finally been solved. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. The applause died down and Marcus returned to his table. The band started playing again. Conversations resumed. People shot me looks. Some curious, some satisfied, some uncomfortable. I finished my champagne and set the glass on the dessert table. Then I walked calmly toward the exit, keeping my head high. "Isabella." I turned. It was my younger cousin Maya. She was 19, studying business at the State University. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. "I'm fine," I said. And I meant it. What Marcus said was, "Don't worry about it," I interrupted gently. "Enjoy the party." I was almost at the door when I heard heels clicking rapidly behind me. "Excuse me, Ms. Rodriguez." I turned to see Natalie Chin, the hotel's event manager, rushing toward me with a tablet in her hands. She looked flustered, her perfectly styled hair slightly disheveled. "Ms. Rodriguez, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I need to confirm a few final details with you before we—" She stopped, noticing the entire room was now watching us. The music had stopped again. "It's fine, Natalie," I said calmly. "What do you need?" "Well, the final invoice is ready and I wanted to make sure you approved all the charges before we close out the account. The total came to $47,318. That includes the extended bar service, the upgraded floral arrangements and the custom cake you ordered. The room was so quiet I could hear the chandelier crystals tinkling in the air conditioning breeze. Natalie looked confused. Is everything all right? You seem... Everything's perfect, I said. Yes, I approve all charges. Charge it to my business account like we discussed. Wonderful. Natalie smiled. And thank you again for choosing the Grandview for this celebration. When you booked the ballroom 6 months ago, you mentioned wanting everything to be perfect for your father's milestone birthday. I hope we delivered. She didn't wait for a response, just hurried back toward the kitchen area. I turned back to look at the room. Every single person was staring at me now. Marcus had gone completely white. Victoria's mouth was hanging open. My mother looked like she'd been slapped. Dad stood up slowly from his chair. 6 months, he said quietly. His voice barely carried across the room, but in the silence, everyone heard it. I nodded. I booked it the day after you mentioned wanting a big party for your 60th. You said you wanted something special, something memorable. So I made it happen. You paid for all this? Dad's voice cracked slightly. Every detail, I said. The venue, the catering, the band, the flowers, the photographer, the decorations. Marcus told you he organized everything, didn't he? Marcus finally found his voice. That's not, I didn't say. You did, Victoria interrupted suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. She was staring at Marcus with an expression I couldn't quite read. You told everyone you planned this. You said you spent months organizing it. I helped. Marcus protested. I made the guest list. The guest list I sent you 3 months ago? I asked calmly. The one where I asked you to please make sure everyone received proper invitations? Marcus's mouth opened and closed like a fish. The invitations, Maya said suddenly. Mine came with a note from Marcus saying he organized everything. Other guests started murmuring. Someone else mentioned receiving a similar note. My mother stood up, her face flushed. Isabella, if this is true, why didn't you say anything? Why let Marcus take credit? Because I didn't do it for credit, I said simply. I did it for Dad. Dad was walking toward me now, moving through the crowd of guests. People stepped aside to let him pass. The invoice, Dad said. $47,000? And 318, I added. The cake was custom-made. 4 tiers, hand-decorated, serves 200. Your favorite, chocolate with raspberry filling. How did you? Dad stopped a few feet away from me. How did you pay for this? This was the moment. The moment where I could have stayed quiet, could have just left. But Marcus's words were still ringing in my ears. You're not part of this family anymore. I own 3 luxury apartment buildings downtown, I said clearly, making sure everyone could hear. I bought the first one 4 years ago with money I saved from my failed graphic design business. The one you told me to quit, Mom. The one you said was a waste of time. My mother's face went red. That building generates $42,000 in monthly rental income. I used the profits to buy the second building 2 years ago. Then the third one last year. Together they're worth about $18 million. The silence was deafening. I also run a property management company, I continued. We manage 73 properties across the city. My annual income last year was $2.4 million. Marcus made a choking sound. But you drive that old car, Victoria said weakly. You live in that small apartment. I live in a small apartment because I don't need much space, I said. I drive an old car because it runs perfectly fine. I don't waste money on things that don't matter. You never said anything, Dad said. His voice was strange, not angry but something else. Hurt maybe. You never asked, I replied. 3 years ago when I told you I quit my corporate job to focus on real estate, you called me irresponsible. You said I was throwing my life away. Marcus told everyone at that Christmas dinner that I was probably going to end up homeless. I looked at Marcus. He couldn't meet my eyes. So I stopped talking about my life, I continued. I stopped coming to family dinners where everyone asked when I was going to get a real job. I stopped attending events where Marcus introduced me as his struggling sister. I built my business quietly and I was fine with that. Then why come tonight? Mom asked. Why pay for all this? Because he's my father, I said, looking at Dad. Because despite everything I wanted him to have a perfect 60th birthday. I wanted him to be surrounded by everyone he loves in a beautiful space, with amazing food and music and memories. I wanted him to feel celebrated. Dad's eyes were shiny. He took another step toward me. I never meant for you to feel. He started. I know, I interrupted gently. You wanted what was best for me. You worried about me. I understand that. But somewhere along the way, everyone decided that because I didn't follow the traditional path I must be failing. And no one bothered to check if that was actually true. Natalie appeared again, this time with another staff member carrying a massive birthday cake on a wheeled cart. It was stunning. 4 tiers covered in smooth chocolate fondant with gold leaf details and fresh raspberries. The birthday cake, Natalie announced cheerfully, completely oblivious to the tension in the room. Where would you like us to position it, Ms. Rodriguez? In front of the head table, I said. So Dad can see it when they sing. The staff members positioned the cake carefully. 60 gold candles sparkled on top of it. There's an inscription, Natalie said, pointing to elegant gold lettering on the side of the cake. Just like you requested. Dad moved closer to read it. His hand went to his mouth. The inscription read, "To the man who taught me to work hard, dream big and never give up. Happy 60th birthday, Dad. Love, Isabella." You put that on the cake 6 months ago, Dad said. It wasn't a question. When I ordered it, yes. Dad stood there, staring at the cake, at the ballroom full of guests he loved, at the decorations and flowers and everything I'd arranged for him. Then he looked back at me. I'm so sorry, he whispered. Marcus stood up suddenly. This is ridiculous. So she has some money. That doesn't change. Sit down, Marcus, Dad said. His voice was quiet but firm. Marcus sat. Dad turned to face the room full of guests. My daughter Isabella paid for this entire celebration. She planned it, she organized it, and she did it because she loves me. And I stood here and let my son tell her she wasn't part of this family. Some guests looked uncomfortable. Others looked ashamed. I've spent 3 years believing my daughter was struggling, Dad continued. Believing she needed guidance, needed help, needed to get her life together. I worried about her constantly. I lost sleep wondering if she was okay. His voice grew stronger. And the whole time she was more successful than most people in this room. More successful than me. And she never said a word because we made her feel like she couldn't. Mom was crying now, tears streaming down her face. Marcus, Dad said, turning to my brother. Apologize to your sister. Dad, Now. Marcus stood up slowly. He walked toward me and for the first time in years he looked unsure of himself. I'm sorry, he said. His voice was barely audible. For what, specifically? I asked. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I genuinely wanted to know if he understood. For taking credit for the party. For saying you weren't family. He swallowed hard. For treating you like you were less than me for years. For making you feel like you had to hide your success. I nodded. Thank you. He stood there for a moment longer, then returned to his table. Dad reached for my hand. Please don't leave. Please stay. Let me celebrate my birthday with my daughter. I looked at his face, really looked at it. I saw the regret there, the pain, the hope that maybe it wasn't too late to fix things. Okay, I said quietly. I'll stay. Dad pulled me into a hug right there in front of everyone. I'm so proud of you, he whispered. I should have said that years ago. The photographer captured that moment. Dad hugging me while 200 guests watched in silence. Natalie clapped her hands. Should we sing happy birthday? And we did. The whole room sang while Dad stood in front of his elaborate cake, his arm around my shoulders. When it came time to blow out the candles, he closed his eyes for a long moment before opening them and looking at me. I wish that I could be the father you deserved, he said. You still can be, I replied. He blew out all 60 candles in one breath. The party continued after that, but everything had changed. People came up to me, some to apologize, some to ask about my business, some just to talk. Maya stayed by my side most of the night, asking questions about real estate investing. Victoria approached me around 10 o'clock. I didn't know, she said, about any of it. Marcus told me he was organizing everything. He even complained about how expensive it was. It's okay, I said. It's not, she insisted. He lied to me. To everyone. And he was so cruel to you. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. Mom found me near midnight as guests were starting to leave. Can we talk? She asked. Not tonight, but soon? Soon, I agreed. Marcus avoided me for the rest of the night. I saw him leave early with Victoria. They were arguing in hushed voices near the elevator. At 1 in the morning, only close family remained. The staff was cleaning up, packing away decorations and stacking chairs. I was helping Natalie coordinate the final details when Dad approached. Come to breakfast tomorrow, he said. Just you and me. We have a lot to talk about. I'd like that, I said. He kissed my forehead, something he hadn't done in years. As I drove home in my old car, the one Victoria had mocked earlier, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because everyone knew about my success now. That part didn't matter much to me. I felt lighter because I'd stood in that ballroom and told the truth. Because I'd let them really see me for the first time in years. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Thank you for showing me that success doesn't have to look like everyone expects it to. I smiled and replied, build your life for yourself, not for anyone else's approval. The night air was cool as I drove through empty streets toward my small apartment. Tomorrow I'd have breakfast with Dad. We'd really talk for the first time in years. Maybe we'd fix things. Maybe we wouldn't. But either way I'd shown up. I'd told the truth. And I'd walked away with my head high. That was enough.